Okay, and now we are live. Hello, and good evening to anybody who's joining us or who will eventually join us. It's just you and me at the moment. So, welcome and thank you for joining us when you do. My name is Bumi from the Vidcom's Employability Matters in Diaspora community platform on Facebook. So, tonight we're coming back to round off the education broadcast that we had not too long ago. We had a conversation about a different kind of education, and I had said we will come back to talk about it. So tonight I've got with me a lovely friend who's joining me again in a chat. You know, I like to come with a friend to chat. I've got another one to chat with me tonight. So for anybody who's watching this or who's logging on for the first time, just to give you a bit of an insight into what we do on the Vidcom's platform on Facebook. And what I've done over the years is done a fair bit of coaching with people from different backgrounds who are usually immigrants or people who are usually from diaspora communities, in particular in UK, which is where I live. And lots of conversations come out of the coaching that we do. I also do counseling as well, which is around issues that affect people at work. And a lot of conversations come up around some of the challenges that people have in the workplace and also some of the positive things that do happen for people as well. So I set up this platform so that people can come together and start to have those conversations in a structured way on a platform. And also what I find as well is people say these things are happening, but nobody really talks about them. The platform is there for us to start to normalize and just acknowledge that, okay, these things don't just happen to me as an individual, they happen to other people from those communities. So tonight we're going to talk about a different kind of education, but this is a sequel to the one that we did the last time. And I've got with me a lovely friend who's going to introduce herself, and then we'll start our chat.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Grace. Grace Adewale. And I call myself a holistic child strategist, and I partner with parents to raising confident, independent, well-rounded children. What that means really, or I do that through either tutoring them maths and English, and also teach them entrepreneurship classes. By getting them to giving them that, setting them up with an entrepreneurial mindset, and off the back of that, they would have a venture that they would then, start selling something from their passion, but mostly from what they enjoy doing or what they're good at, and help them to take that to the market. So that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. So somebody out there's probably wondering, well, how's that relevant to me as an adult, and how does that even help me with my employability matters? Well, a lot of the things that we started talking about the last time when we talked about education was we tend to stick with what happens in the classroom, and we consider that to be gospel, and we consider that to be especially as Africans, we Nigerians in particular, if it's not an academic education with a BSc or HND or PhD behind it, we don't think it's got any relevance to the work that we're doing. And what I found personally is that I had that mindset for many years. But what I've recognized is that in working alongside children to learn, I've started to unlearn a lot of behaviors, and I've started to relearn new ones. And so there is a lot of transferable knowledge from watching the children learn that we actually could transfer into our own experiences as employees in the workplace. For argument's sake, I never liked maths. It was just awful. We were enemies, and I didn't like it. That was that. I had an F9, which basically is there's no score for it. You had nothing. That's how bad I was. But I passed every other subject, thankfully, especially English. I like English. But what I then found was that when my daughter was doing her 11 plus exams, and the teacher would teach her stuff and she would come home and do it, I started learning maths all over again. And I learned it in a completely different way from how I had learned it as a child. I don't think I learned it as a child. I think I just was terrified of it. And
you got crammed into it if you don't get it right.
Yeah, that was it. So I spent a lot of time alongside her on learning and relearning stuff. And that actually has helped me with a lot of stuff around reporting at work, because give me a report with lots of text in it and I will pull it off for you. Any kind of narrative, I'm good with it. But when you start to talk about the graphs and the charts and the numbers and the things, you start to, I start to think, oh, I don't want to do this. But actually, once I got reacquainted with maths in a very different way, I'm a very different person. I'm actually happy to take on board anything that is relevant to numbers in my reports. And now my reports have got graphs, they've got charts, they've got lots of nice things relevant to numbers. So the purpose of you being here, or the purpose of Grace coming to join us, is to showcase some of the stuff that children learn that can help us. Again, we said last time, it's nice to have a great office job, but also to be able to convert some of your knowledge to something entrepreneurial is actually very important. Yeah. So we're learning alongside the children, and we're getting better as adults as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I'm going to ask you, Grace, to help me think through some of the value of learning outside of a classroom, because essentially that's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, it's great to have an education, but there's more to education outside the classroom. So tell me a bit about it. What value does that add to a child's experience, and what can that add to our lives as adults as well?
If education being what it may, right, it's very, very abstract. I think that the biggest benefit you would learn in a school environment would be able to read and write.
Yeah.
Okay, because everyone, that's a skill that you can't in this day and age, you can't get around it. Yeah. But when you now start thinking about other subjects, unless you're going to specialize in medicine or something that is very literature based or very heavy with academia, or you're going to become a lecturer or something, the education system doesn't particularly cater to anything outside of that box. And it is such that the industrial age, right, everything else has moved on from the industrial age, but education itself. So and back then they were training people to become teachers, doctors, because they were there was a new form. But here and now, so there are people that are in great trades and doing exceedingly well, that are able to put food on the table, that haven't finished, didn't go to university, or barely got a college degree. Do you know what I mean? So the life and the world age that we're in right now, it's a whole different dynamics. Now, if a child wants to go into a particular professional career or whatever, yes, it's great. But there are other children in the classroom. So I'm a qualified teacher by profession, and so back in the days, about 6 years ago, when I was still in the classroom, I would have 30 odd kids in the class, and every child ever so different. They all have different needs. I would have the kids that are peaking right up there in my classroom, that are doing so well, they're getting it. I have the ones that are twiddling their thumb in the carpet and looking and picking their nose. I have the in-betweeners that are just like, as long as you don't call my name, I'm okay to carry on in this classroom. So it's a very broad spectrum of kids in the classroom. And for me, one of the things that really used to get me at the time, I was very conscious about trying to unpick the child's ability, what are their thoughts, how they processing stuff, what are their gift, what are they good at. And I try to make my teaching to try to suit every child and as best as I can at different points. And I could also do that because I was in a reception class at the time, so it was easy to keep it more play based. But when it started going into like the year 6 and all of those things, it's harder to make the learning as fun or as kinesthetic, as visual and all of those things for children to learn from. But even at that, simple things like okay, if you're having to bake cookies, so we try in the classroom. I'm not going to knock it off. We try if they're doing in a maths activity, for example. So in my year 2 class, if we're going to teach them measurement and stuff, we say okay, we're going to bake stuff. I'm going to get to measure things, mix and make the maths practical as possible. But beyond that, once I get into secondary school, you can't really be practicalizing maths like that. It's not gonna, it's a whole different kettle of fish. So outside the classroom, it is important to provide your children the lifestyle skills that will help them to be well-rounded. And I use that a holistic child where they're unpicking things and they're not just going with the status quo of what a classroom is saying. They're actually beginning to dig deep and think about, actually, what am I good at? Because, I mean, back in the day, our parents would ask us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you run because one auntie or one uncle down the road is because he's a doctor, he's doing this, he's doing that.
As well.
You can make plenty of money, an accountant can make plenty of money. I'm like, oh, I'll be a doctor, I'll do this, I'll do that. But now, much like, I don't know, because they're not thinking in that. They like, I don't know what I want to become. I just want to experience life. They want to go through that experience process. So it's the beauty of helping your child to see what are they good at, honing in on that, and helping them to see that I can learn from this. So even if your child said, okay, I want to be baking cookies, and then come tomorrow, they say, oh, I don't want to bake cookies anymore, I want to be painting. Allow them to explore those opportunities, because the biggest thing that even we as adults that we suffer from is letting an idea die from inception. But if we can help our children to birth that idea and follow it through, that's an amazing skill that they will take on for the rest of their life, because they know that they're not quitters. And even if they fail through the process, they are learning through that process. But I can go on and on, but that's for me, learning outside of classroom, that's what it looks like for me. And
what that then translates into for us as adults is you talked about being a doctor and being a lawyer, and actually when I was growing up, I only ever thought that there were a couple of professions, in fact 4: the doctor, the nurse, the lawyer, and the teacher. Then I used to hear about the engineer, but I didn't quite know what that was, but it sounded good. I never wanted to, but I'd heard about it. And what that then translated into for me was, once I got to the workplace, if you didn't follow a formulaic approach like how I learned in school, I often got lost. So I always looked for things that were very structured, but I didn't want to be any of all those things. And to my own detriment, I spent many years kind of looking for this career. But actually, my gift is in writing. I write really well. I like English. And it was much later on that I found out that, okay, my love for literature, my love for English, my love for writing, I needed something that worked along those lines. And I never quite knew what it was, but eventually I found it anyway. And one of the things that we do is, because we don't know of all the other things that surround all these supposed superior, if you like, career pathways, because we don't know enough, or we don't allow ourselves to find what our strengths are, we get lost. So I'll give you an example. I work in the NHS and I work in complaints management, and I've done that for a good while, because that involves a whole range of skills. And there are moments when you've got to think creatively about how you're dealing with issues that people bring, or with managing teams, or with representing your organization outside, and all those sort of things. And it wasn't until much later, alongside learning with my daughter, that I realized there is no structure to doing it. It is an art. It's not a science. So you've got to be able to think critically. And that's one of the things that we missed out on growing up, being critical thinkers. And the other thing was soft skills. Now, when I was growing up, who would then say, well, I'm going to university to learn how to communicate? Or people would be like, what do you mean communicate? That's not a thing. What is that? But actually, soft skills, without soft skills, in fact, a lot of people struggle when they migrate from one country to the other, certainly from Nigeria to here, because we don't do things like teach people how to communicate or conduct meetings, chair meetings, or facilitate conversations with people and stuff like that. So people come and they feel out of depth and they feel lost. But these are very intelligent professional people. It's just that the critical thinking that allows you to develop the soft skills that you have was never really nurtured. So same as you, I could go on forever when it comes to that sort of soft skills.
It goes to show, because obviously from our education standpoint, a lot of times when we're doing our JAM, WAEC, and all those exams, is cram to pour out, right?
Just fill your head.
Exactly. So it was all cramming, and so there was no, because even when I transitioned here, education, and I came here to do my to carry on schooling, it was hard because I could speak English well, I could communicate, but when I reintegrated back into the school system here, maths was easy for me. I was like, boom, boom, I could do maths. I aced that. English, I said, please, I'll do a foundation paper. I'm never going to try. Because how I learned English back home, it was so nothing. It was like, back home is like, you put A and you get B. Here, with English, you have to read in between the lines, inference, there's just so much depth to how you need to respond. And there was no right or wrong answer. Absolutely. But it was more about how you presented your case, how you what your arguments, your beginning, your end, your points, your evaluation. Like, nah, that wasn't at the time I was like, no, I there's no way I'm doing this. And that was it. But now, having children, working with children, and as an adult, it's really changed my thinking and how I respond to my children, how I respond to my biological children and the children I teach as well, about how, okay, so don't tell me, oh, I can't do it. No, there's always a way.
There's always a way.
There's always a way. Let's unpick what exactly is the issue. Let's unpick it, and then think about how we can come to a solution. It might not be what you would like it to be, but you're thinking it through. And I'm a firm believer, and I always say this to my students as well. It's not about the end product. So even in my entrepreneurship classes I would do, it's not so much so about the product that you have at the end that you want to sell or you want to take to the market. It's more about the journey from your point A to B, how you've grown through that process, and your mind is engaged at a different level. I mean, even the parents that when I did the last cohort, the parents are like, even I, as a business or as an entrepreneur, I've never really thought about it the way you've explained it to the child. So they're having to go back and tinker their own, like, oh, my business plan, what's my cost per unit, or what are the things I'm trying to think and process. Oh, actually, Grace said this, and a lot of us will think, oh, my passion, what I'm good at, but thinking about it in a whole different perspective, it's a mind shift, an absolute mind shift.
And I suppose for me, one of the things that really matter when we're talking about adults and employability, we think about us being at work and we earn a living, we come back and we do whatever next. It's really important for the children as well to now get it right, because they are the next generation employees in diaspora. And what we don't want them to do is recreate some of the things that we did and we know didn't quite work well. So we want them to get to a point where they are critical thinkers. Critical thinking really matters, because actually, if you are used to a formulaic way of thinking, A is equals to B, wherever you go in the world, you expect things to operate in that kind of way, and then you wonder why you're not succeeding. Why am I not being promoted? Well, she got promoted. I have 24 qualifications, but she got promoted. Is it because she's this or no? It's because she demonstrates with her HND that she is a critical thinker, whereas you with a PhD are thinking, well, look at my certificate, look at my qualification, and that on its own is not enough. So it's important that we help the children as well to be able to just develop in that way. Fortunately, the education system encourages it, but you mentioned something earlier, 30 children in a class. How much of it can that academic education system give a child for them to become one of the top employees? I know one of the challenges that we have at the moment is that in most boardrooms, certainly here in UK, there are not many Black people there. This is the time to kind of change that for the people that are coming behind us, and also change it for ourselves, learn some new skills and work in a very different way. So you talked about, you've mentioned a couple of times, entrepreneurship, and I know that that's a package that you've put together for children to learn. So tell us a bit about that and what it entails.
Right. So it's that I always say that there are two things. So the end goal is not to become a kid entrepreneur, because as lovely as it sounds, where my child's running their business and they're making their own money, that is beautiful. But I'm more particular about the mindset shift that happens with a child through that process. So they will have their product. That's a guarantee. They will have an idea that they're going to run with if they don't already have something. And they will have a setup. So we'll go through the soft skills of building a website, using Canva to develop, design their logo, their brand, and all of those things. Think about how they would, their costs, calculating their startup costs, drawing up a business plan, all of those things. They would do it obviously at a child's level. So I'm not going to get into do like extensive spreadsheets, you know. if they're capable of doing, if a child comes up with that ability, but why not? But I set it at their level. But more so, they're learning how to be problem solvers. They're learning how to be creative thinkers. So, I mean, one of our sessions is sit down and think about what are they passionate about, what do they enjoy doing, what comes naturally to them, and then not just what comes naturally to you, but what that thing that comes naturally to you that you're good at doing at home for your parents or anything. Is anyone willing to pay you money for that? Now, if someone's willing to pay you money for that, then that means there's a need that you can be meeting. So it's not just about you, what I can get from it, is am I meeting someone else's needs? So that's where the empathy and being a problem solver, a solution provider for people comes in. So they learn those things as a matter of I'm creating something, but I'm not just thinking about me, I'm serving other people as well. Our tagline is raising leaders in the marketplace. Now, being a leader, it's about servant leadership. It's not about a position you have. It's not about you being the boss or you're lording yourself over people. It's about you actually entering into a space whereby you're thinking about your customers, you're thinking about people. What do they need? What do I have that I can use to meet their need? And more so, they're happy to pay me for that. So that's the journey we take them through until, you know, so that's, I'm just like trying to paraphrase here what all of that, what the whole 12 weeks will be about. So from goal setting to, it's plenty.
It's a 12-week package. That's really interesting. So do they do it alongside being at school, or do they do bits of it sort of at the end of the school day, during the holidays?
At the end of the school day. So we have one call each week. On a Thursday around, I think it's 5 o'clock. And then but prior to that, I also have a digital course that like a video with worksheets and everything that they would have accessed before coming in. So that way they've listened and they've watched, they've tinkered through the process of what we're going to be doing in the session. So when they now come in for the mastermind calls, is more of a deep dive. So they're asking me questions. We're able to unpick different ideas and their thoughts, and then more so, you know, add on that. And so that's 12 weeks.
Wow, that's not fun. What's that? That's a quarter of a year, isn't it? 12 weeks? 3
months.
A quarter.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So if people wanted to look at this or wanted to know more about this, what have they got to do? Where have they got to go to?
So they have to. Oh, okay.
Do I need to link in at some
Yeah.
point?
So we have an Instagram page,
Okay.
but I think the quickest place that you can go to would be www.trainupachild.co.uk /Gaffer Kids Club. So that's GAFFA Kids KIDS Club. And I think that Gaffer Kids Club. Yeah, and that should take you there.
Yeah.
And if ever in doubt, you can find us on Instagram, train_up a child, all one word. So train_up a child, all one word. And we've got a link that on the Linktree page that takes you straight to the classes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll dig that up and then I'll put it in at the end of the call because I forgot to ask you for it before we started.
Oh yeah.
I forgot to ask. This is the downside of not having Lola. She cracks the whip so hard. Today she's out delivering babies, I think. So she wasn't able to. Yeah, she's a midwife.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful.
So I'm just going to check and see if anyone's asking any questions.
Nice. I'll probably try and send you the text as well, actually, with the link. So if you want to pop that on for later, you've got that.
Okay. So it's more lots of commentary. Being Grace says she relates very well. Her first son changed his major about 3 times, which almost frustrated them. So that's them with comments. And they felt it was a sign of indecisiveness, but he just wasn't feeling the first 2 majors. He eventually settled for communication, and he's a first-class student in his field. Her daughter's is an artist as well, which isn't something they would have appreciated if they were back home. They're both doing great. That reminds me of something when I was much younger. We had a potter's wheel at home. I don't know how this potter's wheel got into our house, but we had it anyway. And one afternoon, being my creative self, I like to meddle in stuff. I got it out and I started, and my mum was furious. She says, "Where in life is playing with mud going to get you to?" I just don't get it. And quite quickly, whatever I thought I was creating died.
Oh my goodness. Oh god.
So I think these things really matter. But of course, parents at that point, that was just the depth of their knowledge, and that's what they knew. We now know differently, and that's what education is about. So when we're talking about education, it's not just about being in a classroom, academic education. It's about holistic education. So one of the things that you said that made me smile there was allow the child to explore. And again, when you'll know because my daughter and yours went to the same nursery, didn't they? And when they first when my daughter first used to go to nursery, she was my first child, clearly. So she'd come and say, "Oh, so what did you do?" And she'd go, "We ate and we played and we slept and then we."
Where's the ABC? Where's the 1, 2, 3?
And so I said to her one day, "Don't you write 1, 2, 3 in ABC?" She goes, "No, but Mum, we played." And so for a long time, my siblings used to call her, "We ate and we played." But actually, the playing is part of allowing kids to explore. And there is something in that for us as adults, exploring and getting to grips with lots of different opportunities that are out there for us. One of the things, again, that I was introduced to back in the day that was new was support services. I would just say, okay, so support services, who's supporting who? Why am I the one that's going to support people? Why can't I be the one? Why can't I be the one? Why can't I be the one that's getting people to support me?
Oh my goodness.
In certain professions, you have the people that deliver support services. So you have the doctors, but you've got the people who deliver clinical governance around them, who do the patient safety sorts of stuff, who do the comms sorts of stuff. And for a long time, I was not getting it, but I'm much better. I'm in a good place, and I embrace my place as a member and a leader in a support service, because actually, without those support services, these professions that we all name and want to be a part of, they wouldn't thrive. Because how does a doctor spend time operating on a patient and then has to spend time thinking of patient feedback, patient service, patient satisfaction, clinical governance, and all that sort of stuff. So you need those structures. And I think that's a place that we need to get to with our children as well, when we talk about allowing them to explore whatever it is that they're good with and resonates with them and rests well with them. That's what it is. That's where the future comes.
If I could butt in there, so like obviously with having an entrepreneurial mindset, this is probably I'm probably belaboring the point now, but one of the things that even if a child doesn't end up to have a product that they're selling and tinkering around with, right? Mm-hmm. When they've gone through a process, sorry, I'm trying to turn off my alarm. When they've gone through a process of, okay, problem solving a product, they're trying to, like, we're doing like a project together, right? And as an 11-year-old, or even like as use your daughter as an example, she's done her painting, and she decides that, okay, what size of or canvas or is she going to be doing painting with, and then she orders a packaging for her painting supposed out to someone, but she's bought the wrong size or something. Now that is a problem in itself, but that she now needs to think through to solve. Now that experience for her will help her to think creatively. Now fast forward many years down the line, she says, oh, she's now Dr. Amaju in the theater hall, in the theater operating as someone. She has been able to experience different points in her life whereby she's creatively solved a problem, as opposed to a one hat fits all. So that skill helps them to have that mindset of resilience. That even if it doesn't go the way I want it to go, I can figure a way out around it. It's building that resilience in them, that confidence, that the confidence to have a voice, and you know that when they're speaking, that they have value to give. It's all of that skills that having that entrepreneurial mindset and going through that journey helps them to have.
I think the other thing as well that's really important to know is sometimes when you have an idea, you're the one with the idea. It doesn't necessarily mean everybody else is going to buy into it, but you've got to be comfortable with what your ideology is and what your idea is, rather, and what your thoughts are around that process. Again, that's one of the things that we don't do well as Africans, Nigerians, or people in diaspora, is that we talked about this when we talked about imposter syndrome much earlier on when we started doing this. Is you have a thought and then you doubt it because you don't see the value in what you're offering, and somewhere down the line somebody else has exactly that same idea, they do something with it, and boom, it becomes something quite big. So even in our journey as employees, when we have thoughts and when we have ideas, we need to be confident to stand by them and be able to speak to and about them in such a way that it engenders some confidence, or not necessarily confidence, another word I'm looking for, but it's something around credibility. That's it. It gets credibility of other people drawn to it, because I, again, was one of those ones. I would talk what I was doing down so far down. Of course, it ended up being of no value. I'm in a different place, as I say, but that's the sort of thing that we want our children to be confident and able to do, that when they've got an idea, this is what it looks like, and they can talk about it, they can defend it, and if somebody else is not necessarily interested in it, it doesn't mean that somebody else elsewhere won't be.
Exactly. And that's that thing of building that resilience again, because if you think about the moguls of different points in the entrepreneurial moguls and all that, no one really ever said yes to them the first time round, right? And even it's thinking about, even if one person doesn't like it, there's always somebody else that would like what you have. So I always go, well, what are you good at, or what do you enjoy doing? Because is it missing someone else's need? And are they willing to pay for that need? Those three things, once you have that in the bag, that kind of begins to help to frame your mind as to, if no one else wants it, even if it's one person that I know needs and they're willing to pay for it, I have something that is worth value. And holding on to that, having that strong conviction about something is priceless. Because I wish I had that as a child. I wish I had that conviction to stand up for myself and say that this is what I'm doing. I'm not being blown away by everyone's ideas and doctrines and everything. And then at where I am at right now, I'm still trying to unlearn and fine tooth comb, something that shouldn't be there shouldn't have been there in the first place if I'd had the right guidance and counsel growing up. So, and that's why for me, adults, I love you, but children are my babies. Like I cannot allow them to go through what I've been through and not let them have that voice and confidence, because time is of the essence. Life is short, and if we can help them to get to that point quicker than we did, that's a win. That's an amazing win.
And also, the world is a very different place now. There's so many different opportunities. There's so many ways to find out things and learn things. I spent I think it was about an hour and a half yesterday on YouTube learning how to use Canva to do things to your live stream. And as you can see, I came up with what I'm looking at, and I'm thinking, well, that's quite interesting. Before I'd paid somebody to do it. So there's lots of different ways to learn, and it's important that we allow children to get the opportunity. We start to fit it into their minds that there are ways to learn outside the classroom as well. I think the other thing as well is children, I've noticed lately, because I was telling you earlier about consumption of content on YouTube and Google and all that sort of stuff. And actually, it's quite important for children to realize that whilst they're watching what somebody else is creating, that person is earning a living off you watching. So maybe you need to create some more content as well.
Create your own content.
Well, and the other side of what you were saying earlier about if they sell something and satisfaction that you get from selling stuff, the other thing is aside from there is the contentment that you get as a person for creating something, using the skills that you get. And those sorts of things make you feel very, very confident, because you look at it, I've created this, I did it with my own hands, I did it with my own ideas, my own thoughts. And that's actually something very rewarding. So for children, they need that confidence boost, and that's how to get it, doing stuff with your own hands, creating stuff, and just putting it out there for somebody else to admire it as well.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so there aren't any questions coming in, just lots of lots of comments. Good evening to everyone who's saying good evening. Good evening, Nino. And really, is there anything, because we're going to start to wind down now, we've gone past our 30 minutes, we're on 36 minutes already. So as we're parting, is there anything that you would recommend to parents to do to support their children and to help they themselves to grow in their journey of supporting their children?
You said one thing. So what I would, if anything, besides, I mean, it's all well and good to want to solicit, use my service to help, or someone like me use our service in any way. But what I always say is, it always starts from the parents. It always starts from you. And if you're watching this and you're here, that means you're one step ahead. You're conscious about of yourself and the improvements you want to make with yourself. So that's a good place to start, because once your mindset is in the right place, you'll begin to unlearn things that you have learned before, to relearn stuff. You are able to have a good perspective on what you want to do with your children. You can't pour out from an empty cup. So it's only from your own field position you can give anything to your child. So all I'll say is kudos to you for being here and taking the process to learn. And once you're at that place where you are not confident, where you don't feel that you can do it, there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in outsourcing the help you need. Get the help.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't do it alone anyway. There's so much of it. And I think one of the things that we said in one of the previous broadcasts is there's so much more beyond being a parent in helping your child to grow. So there are lots of people who have lots of knowledge that you can add to yours. So always reach out and get some support where you need it to help the child grow and get more than just a classroom education, but a holistic education is what we're saying tonight. Yeah. Okay. So thank you to everybody who has joined us tonight. And thank you for staying up to listen to us. We appreciate it. We don't take your time for granted. I definitely don't take your time for granted. Thank you for all your support. Last week we started the bullying and harassment series, and we're definitely going to be picking that up again in the next few weeks. I just wanted to round off the education series because we said that we were going to do 2. So this is the last of those 2, and we'll be back on the bullying and harassment in the workplace. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.